Hey everybody, Ed Homewood, Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. Hope everyone's doing well today. Today should be another interesting DAC review video. We're going to talk about the Musician Pegasus II. So sit back, relax, and we'll get going on this. Well, before we get started, shout out to Aoshita. They provided this unit for me for review. They did provide the unit, but my thoughts and conclusions are all my own. So again, thank you to Aoshita. So what is the Musician Pegasus II? Well, it is an R-to-R, true R-to-R ladder DAC. They cost $1,100. I'll put some specifications up here, very typical sort of specifications, good performance. It does offer oversampling and non-oversampling mode. It will do up to 16 times oversampling in OS mode. It has some great goes intos and goes outas. We're going to look at the front, we're going to look at the back, and I'm going to open it up and show you the inside, which I think is kind of interesting. Musician is quite proud of their proprietary R-to-R and DSD architecture, and I'll show you inside. They don't use an XMOS, they use two FPGAs and an ARM processor, which is kind of interesting. It has a really good low noise power supply. It has a first in, first out buffer for obviously clocking, latency reduction, all of this noise kind of shaping. It does do all its DSP with FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays, and it uses a proprietary USB audio processing system rather than a traditional XMOS processor, and it is really quite compelling. So you know what, let's do this. Let's look at the front, let's look at the back, we'll go inside and dig around, I'll come back, tell you about some of the music I used, give you my thoughts, how I tested it, all of that wonderful stuff. So give me a minute to reconfigure. All right, here we are looking at the front of the Musician Pegasus II, and you'll notice inputs are very fine LEDs. I'll show them to you in a second, but we've got coax, optical, AES, USB, I2S, and then your input switch, power, and then non-oversampling, oversampling, on-off switch, little LED to indicate 44.1, and the little LED to indicate 48K, and then how many times oversampling, and then DSD if it's doing that. So let's power the unit up. And again, there's nothing going on right now, but you'll see the little fine LEDs. And as I do the switching, obviously it switches through all the different LEDs. No issues there. And again, it's not picking up a signal. So right now it is in non-oversampling mode when the light is lit. When I turn it off, that means it's in oversampling mode. And again, the LEDs would show various status of it. So anyway, that is the front panel of the Musician Pegasus II. Let's take a look at the back. So a pretty typical back panel. We've got a big IEC power socket. We've got USB in on Type B connector. We've got AES EBU on an XLR. We've got SPDIF Toslink. We've got SPDIF coax. We have I2S on HDMI, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Single-ended outputs and balanced outputs. Now, the single-ended and balanced outputs are hot all the time, in case you want to make two connections. Now, on the I2S, there are a number of configurations you can access. I found it worked just fine with my DDC reclockers, so I'm assuming that everybody's kind of adopted the PS audio pin configuration for I2S on HDMI connections, but anyway, I had no trouble with it. I had no reverse channels or anything, so it worked just fine. So anyway, that's the back panel of the Pegasus. You know what? Let's open it up and take a look inside. Well, here we are looking at the inside of the Musician Pegasus II. You'll see a big, large 60 VA toroidal power transformer. It's actually branded Musician. I'm not sure if they actually built it themselves or it's custom made for them. I don't know. I do know that the large red capacitors you'll see here are branded Musician as well. These, I don't know if they're WEMA. They look like WEMA. They could be a Musician capacitor. They're not actually labeled, so I don't know. You'll see the balanced R-to-R ladder configuration with 240 resistors per channel. Obviously that gives us a full 24-bit PCM. Remember, an R-to-R DAC can handle PCM without any oversampling, unlike most Delta Sigma chip-based DACs or multi-bit DACs that are maybe only 24-bit or whatever as far as resistors goes, like the old Burr Brown stuff back in the 80s and 90s. So anyway, the input for USB asynchronous is actually handled by an STM32F446 advanced ARM-based processor. So that will handle the asynchronous USB signal, noise shaping, DSP, so forth and so on, and then hand off to an Altera Cyclone Cyclone 4, which is, in this particular instance, it's a field programmable gate array, an FPGA. So it does data routing and format. It unpacks, aligns, and reformats the data into parallel 24-bit streams, obviously, that the ladder can see. And there's two FPGAs. One would handle, I believe, the DSD conversion. It does oversampling and clock domain management, so it interfaces with master clocks, ensures jitter-free timing, and synchronizes all internal operations. It handles the bit stream generation, converts the serial or packetized audio stream into parallel bit lanes for each DAC bit. So obviously the FPGA divides the signal for each channel, and it drives the appropriate signals, ones and zeros, to each R-to-R ladder input precisely timed to the clock. Now, if it's used, it can be used as a segmented ladder control, and maybe that's what the other FPGA does. So it manages segmented, it manages thermometer coding, dynamic element matching, and advanced R-to-R architectures, and that improves linearity greatly. Sometimes they can do volume control. This isn't done that way, but it also can do error correction and filtering. So it implements the FIR or IIR digital filters that's in non-oversampling or oversampling modes, and it can apply noise shaping or truncation logic. So again, the FPGAs can handle all of the processing of PCM. They can handle the DSD. They can handle digital filtering, noise shaping, and they can handle the oversampling, because again, a full ladder can take a 24-bit PCM with no oversampling and convert it natively. So again, the oversampling is done by the FPGA. Anyway, beautiful layout here, a very lovely unit. So let's do this. Let's button it up. I'm going to talk about how I tested it, some of the music I used, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Well, as you can see from looking inside, this thing's really well put together. I think it's very interesting that they're using an ARM-based processor for their USB, their asynchronous USB signal handling for DSP and jitter reduction and all those other kinds of things. I also think it's really interesting that they use dual Altera Cyclone 4 FPGA chips. That gives them a lot of flexibility, because you can an FPGA is a field programmable gate array. It's basically a programmable logic block that a developer can use to do all sorts of different functions and features in DACs, all sorts of other things, test equipment. It's used in military applications, all kinds of other things, because it's a real simple programmable device that can do certain tasks and do them really well, really quickly, and very efficiently. So I think that's important. So the cool thing is it uses the dual FPGA, so each channel has its own FPGA to control decoding. Now, I didn't realize that when I had it open, or I would have mentioned it. Both FPGAs handle DSD decoding, both handle the PCM, both handle oversampling. I just found that out after I buttoned it up and I did a little more research on the unit itself. So anyway, I think that's a really compelling way that they put it together. So let's talk about how I tested it. Well, in testing the Pegasus 2, I used two different streaming sources. I used Artivana for my Artivana server, running into a USB isolator and then out to the DAC itself, or a reclocker if I was using that at the time. I also used the Shanling SM1.3 as a streamer, and I fed it's the I2S signal out of that into this without a DDC reclocker. So I tested that a couple of different ways with a couple of different streams. I also used the Shanling ET3 CD transport, and for times, because I had it here, I used the SMSL PL200T CD transport. Now, for amplifiers, you guys, you're sick of hearing me say it, I did connect it to the A12 Classic and used it that way. I did connect it to the Black Ice F22. That's my go-to tube amp. I did have it connected to the EXA 100 from Cambridge Audio. That is a ballsy Class AB amplifier, and actually I used the EXN 100 StreamMagic streamer, and I fed that signal into this and then out to the amplifier just to test it that way. So I did use another streamer there briefly. I also used it with the Pearl Acoustics 7040, and I've had a bunch of GaNFET monoblock amplifiers in, and I used it with all of those. And with those, with the separate outboard amplifiers, I used a couple different preamps. I used the Rogue RP5, I used the Black Ice F360, and I used the Audible Illusions Modulus M3B preamplifier. From speaker standpoint, I used my Wharfdales. I used the Magnapan LRS. That was a good combination, depending on the amp. I was trying to find synergies and just kind of give it a different playground to operate within, so I could kind of hear it sound a little better and a little differently. So I did use the Maggies. I did use my big Wharfdales. I did use the CSS Crichton 3 TDXs. I used the Jamie Audio i602s. I used the what did I have here? Oh, I used the Q Acoustics 3030Cs just briefly. I also used the Buchart SP300s, and I used the Martin Logan Impression 11 ESLs. So I used a lot of different speakers, and each one of those speakers gives me kind of a different look at things. You know, some of the more budget ones, how does it perform? Do I get a little additional resolution? Does it bring that speaker up a notch or down a notch, whatever? As far as DDC reclockers, I did use the Matrix Audio Expedif 3, and I did use my Singzer SU2 and the Live Micro DDC. And I did, for just giggles, on the desktop, I was just messing around one day, and I used the new Duke Audio U2 XMOS 316. It's the newest updated version of the U2, and that worked quite well on the desktop. So from a cable standpoint, most of my cables are wire world. I use the Sphere HDMI cables for I2S. I use the Chroma 8 USB cables for the asynchronous USB connection. I used the Solstice, I used the Nova optical cable for the Toslink, and then just normal Solstice interconnects and speaker cables. I did, for a time, because I've got them in from Canada, I did use the Crescendo DX 2024F AES-EBU cable to connect the ET3 to the DAC via AES-EBU. And I did use the DS 2024 SPDIF cable, RCA, that's cryogenically treated, to connect, again, from a reclocker into coax on the back of the unit. And I did also, for a time, use some Argent Pure silver interconnect. So that's kind of how I tested it. I think that's pretty comprehensive. I wanted to give it a good all-around bass and try it with a bunch of different things to try to get different flavors, a different sound, and how did it respond, and were there any unique synergies? And I'll talk about more of that in the summary. So I'm going to use tracks rather than albums in this. You can explore each of the albums these tracks come from if you so desire. So the first track I used was It's My Life from the band No Doubt. And it's their cover of the 1984 British band Talk Talk's big hit, It's My Life. Now, this was released in 2003 as part of a compilation album, the singles 1992 to 2003. It's kind of a greatest hits for No Doubt. Their version is interesting in that it is kind of more aggressive. It's a more polished, more pop rock feel. Gwen Stefani's vocals are marvelous, but they're right at the forefront of this. And it features a lot of kind of synth-driven elements, like the original, but it adds much punchier rhythm and more modern production style. The track was well received. It earned a Grammy nomination, and it's very interesting. It's it's driven by Tony Kanal's bass. He's the bass player and was Gwen Stefani's main squeeze at the time. He lays down a real good, solid bass groove that just kind of underpins the forward movement of the track, and it's really good. This will get you butt dancing in your chair. I love this track. I listen to it a lot. It's not the world's greatest recording, but it's so much fun and it's so much energy. It's just really fun. So let's talk about the next track I used. So the next track I used was, and I think I've used this one before, it was Flight of the Cosmic Hippo by Bella Fleck and the Flecktones off their 1991 album of the same title. It is a cool album. It kind of showcases the Flecktones' ability, their fusion of jazz and funk and bluegrass and folk rock and post-bop. Critics have called it blue bop, and actually there's a song titled Blue Bop on the album. The album itself reached #1 on the Contemporary Jazz chart. It earned 2 Grammy nominations, one for Best Album and one for Best Instrumental Song, the song Blue Bop. And the actual title, Flight of the Cosmic Hippo, was inspired by an audience suggestion. The original title was Flight of the Codeine Hippo, but they wanted to remove any drug references. Musically, you can expect some really inventive banjo-led interplay, some really interesting solos. There's some playful syncopation. There's some real genre-blending kind of arrangements. The track features Bella Fleck. He is a virtuoso on the banjo. I'll get it out. one of these days, over a really tight groove laid down by legend bassist Victor Wooten. There's harmonic and piano contributions from Howard Levy and the electric rhythms of Future Man. In short, Flight of the Cosmic Hippo stands as a vibrant embodiment of Flecktone's groundbreaking fusion sound, highly regarded by critics and fans for its really skillful genre blending and vibrant group chemistry. This is a fascinating album, and if you've never really listened to kind of funky jazz, bop, banjo, you got to listen to it. It's marvelous, and it's just wonderful, and it's, you know what, you get moving in your seat. You really do. Foot tapping, butt dancing, that kind of stuff. So let's talk about the last track I used, and we'll get the heck out of here. So the last track this is an artist I go back to an awful lot because I think he's one of the greatest jazz pianists and one of the greatest jazz composers ever, and that is Chick Corea, and the song is called 500 Miles High, and this is a live version of it. Now, this song has been recorded a number of times. The version you're hearing here is is from a 2018 performance, and it's off the album Trilogy 2, which is a compilation of a bunch of different Chick Corea songs, whether they're solo or Return to Forever, whatever. The original song itself was written, the melody, music was written by Chick Corea. The lyrics were written by Neville Potter, and the song actually has lyrics, and it was originally sung on the 1973 Return to Forever album, Light as a Feather by Flora Purim. And in that era, you had an amazing rhythm section of Stanley Clarke and Lenny White. Now, this track the track itself was a staple in Return to Forever live performances and Chick Corea live performances. Return to Forever did a far more electrifying, very long, they could do 20 minutes on this song without any problem in their live versions. This particular version really kind of goes into very extended improvisational terrain, featuring Chick Corea's really soaring electric piano solos. There's a lot of atmospheric interplay, a powerful group dynamics. It's a mix of melodic sophistication and rhythmic drive. It makes it both accessible and adventurous. Now, 500 Miles High is a defining Chick Corea piece, one of the strongest compositions, and it's a real bridge between post-bop, fusion, and Brazilian jazz. And it keeps its vigor in live performances. It's just an amazing song to hear. I was fortunate enough to hear it way back in the day when Return to Forever came to Chicago and played at what we called the Aragon Ballroom. It was actually the Aragon Ballroom, but that was a great concert venue, and that's where I heard it live. So whether you're in the mood for spirited live groove or jazz classic, this one soars every time. It is a ton of fun. So let me tell you what I thought of this DAC. So what did I think of the Pegasus II? This is a very good and very compelling DAC in a very crowded price category at $1,100. There's a lot of stuff in and around here. You've got the live micro DAC, you've got the Denafrips Enyo and Aries are kind of in this price point. You've got the topping Centaurus, you've got the hollow Cyan, you've got a number of other really interesting not only ladder DACs, but high-end Delta Sigma chip-based DACs in this category. And this fits right in and is super competitive. Are any of them better than the others? Well, yes and no. This is, I think, a better DAC than topping Centaurus. I also think it's a better DAC than the Cyan Hollow. The Hollow Cyan, sorry about that. I just don't care for that DAC. I wasn't impressed with it. I thought the topping used that DAC set from Hollow in a better implementation than the Cyan did, but I think this is a better DAC than both. I think it's slightly better than the Enyo, which I've not heard in depth, but I have listened to briefly. I don't know about the Denafrips Aries 15th. I've heard the 12th, and this sounds comparable to that, every bit comparable. A lot's going to depend on what you're feeding it and how you're feeding it and what you're doing with it. So for a lot of my reviewing, obviously all of it, I streamed from Artivana, running from my Artivana server through a USB isolator, and then into the Singzer SU2 when I was using it, and then out of that I2S on a WireWorld I2S cable. If I did use optical, I did run out the Singzer into the optical to test it. I did use AES-EBU from the Shanling ET3 CD player, and I did use optical out of the SMSL PL200T CD transport as well into this, and everything performed exceptionally well. So a lot depends on how you're running it and its performance. I think it's every bit as good as any of those DACs in the category. I think it's, like I said, I think it's better than the topping Centaurus. I think it's better than the hollow cyan. I think it's on a par with the live micro DAC. I think this and the Singsar at about $1,600-1,700 is very close in performance. Not one isn't better than the other. Than the live micro DAC and micro DDC. That's a real compelling combination, as is this with the Singsar. Now, with the Matrix X SPDIF 3, didn't quite reach the same level as the Singsar. They're both the same price. I prefer the Singsar over the Matrix, and I own them both, so I can say that without reservation. As far as its performance, I think in this category, price-wise, you know, if you do that combination of this and a good DDC reclocker like the Gustard U18 or the Singsar SU2 at $1,700-1,800 thereabouts, I think you're going to get 85%, maybe 90% of the performance of a DAC costing twice as much easily. This did very, very good. I was very impressed with it. It worked flawlessly. It hooked up, connected, never had any issues, never had any glitches. It sounded warm and detailed, good bass. Now, R2R DACs don't always do the greatest with bass. A lot depends on how they process stuff, but this did very good with bass, very good with attack. Transients were well reproduced. I thought all of the frequencies were it was very even, very warm, that normal R2R kind of ladder warmth sound, good imaging, really wide, tall, very focused center channel. Good depth. R2R DACs don't always do the best with super depth, although I think lately they've been doing a little bit better than some of the chip-based stuff. So this had good depth. Laser focus instrument placement, I don't know. I've not found a lot of DACs in this price range that are absolutely laser focused, but boy, I got a good general impression of where everything was located, and I just thought it sounded wonderful. On masked strings, you know, I could pick out an individual instrument and follow it. So there was good clarity, there was good detail, there was good resolution, there was no stridency, there was no limiting of transients. The decays and leading edges of notes were very well defined. I thought quite well done. And again, I'd put it on a par. It's a little different flavor, but I'd put it on a par with the live micro DAC and micro DDC. This and the Singsar SU2 DDC reclocker. Excellent, excellent combination. But just on its own, really good piece, and a great starting point if you want to get into messing around with DDC reclockers and clocks and those kinds of things. So anyway, the Pegasus II gets a thumbs up for me. I really enjoyed it. And again, in and around this price point, I think it is super competitive and super compelling and well worth your consideration. Well, before we wrap up, another big shout out to Ayoshida for providing this unit for me for review. I'm going to hate to see it go back. It's a nice piece. But anyway, they did provide the unit, but all my conclusions and opinions are my own. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed it enough to give me a thumbs up and like it and give me your subscription. That would help the channel out a lot. Thanks to my members, my subscribers, and my viewers. You guys have been wonderful to me. In the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an affiliate link to this product for Ayoshida if you're interested in purchasing it. You'll find that in the pinned comment and in the video description. You'll also find a channel membership link in the pinned comment and in the video description if you are inclined to join the channel. If you'd also like to support the channel, you can. There's a thank you button at the bottom of the video window if you're watching on your device or PC. There will also be some new affiliate links in the video description. Oh, by the way, there will be title and Qobuz links to the 3 tracks I mentioned. And I'll probably put them in a playlist and just link to that, but you'll see that in the video description. There's also a link to the community post playlist. Please check that out. There's some great music there. Comment, let me know your thoughts. There's a lot of activity going on in this kind of $1,000-ish price range for DACs, Delta Sigma or R2R or whatever. There's a lot going on. I know someone's going to ask me, does the FIO K11 R2R compete with these kinds of DACs? No, it's a wonderful little desktop DAC headphone amp. No, it's not in the same category. But again, we're getting spoiled for choice in this price range. Between that, you know, probably $800 and maybe $1,500 price range, there's a lot of good stuff. So anyway, let me know your thoughts about all of that. I think I've covered all the bases. Yes. Please like, subscribe, comment. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Yes, please put on some beautiful music, sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really hope you have a wonderful day.